The first one you see on the right-hand side of the light is called timber.
Dạ, xong rồi mình phải ốp lên.
Means sharp. And I have to tell you, there's still plenty of them out here. 5 varieties use San Francisco bay for feeding and raising their young.
Guarda, ti che ne io. Cái nó nói cho à, mang về mà io sao đó à.
Across from Tiburon is the town of Sausalito, which means Little Willow Road. It's inside the cove to the left. Sausalito used to be a small whaling village, full of great fishermen and sea traders. Its colorful history is filled with tales of smuggling, Prohibition-era rum runners, bordellos, and ballroom brawls. Sausalito was transformed into a shipbuilding center during World War II, turning out a fleet of Liberty and Victory ships that carried supplies to the military around the world. Those hills above the waterfront are filled with beautiful homes, each with $1 million view of the bay. But equally as wonderful, down on the water, you'll find a whole patchwork neighborhood of houseboats. Everything from a floating recreation of the Taj Mahal to families living on a tugboat. Behind Sausalito, if it's clear, you should be able to see the tall outline of Mount Tamalpais. Look at its shape across the horizon. One Native American legend compares that shape to the silhouette of a Crow woman said to be Queen of the Tomo tribe who lived here. She's resting with her feet in the cool waters of the bay. Mount Tamalpais, or Mount Tam, is a state park with lots of hiking trails and amazing 360-degree views, especially if you have the energy to hike 2,500 feet up to the top. Or you may prefer to explore on a mountain bike, which was invented, by the way, by Marin resident Gary Fisher. On the other side of Mount Tam is Muir Woods, where you can stroll through a grove of 300-foot tall redwoods. They are the only old-growth trees left in the area. Now we're coming up on Angel Island. It's that big landmass just past Tiburon. The native Californians that once lived there were the Coast Miwok. They paddled around the bay in boats made of reeds lashed together. 4 tribes called the Bay Area: the Wintune, the Yokuts, the Costanoans, as well as the Miwok lived in this area. Most of the tribes found the north side of the bay more hospitable, with plentiful hunting grounds, good weather, and fresh, clear streams. Remember, the San Francisco Peninsula was sand dunes, not an easy place to find food. When the Spanish explorers arrived, they dubbed the island La Isla de Nuestra Señora de los Ángeles, the island of Our Lady of the Angels. Over the years, the island has been a watering hole for passing whaler ships, a cattle ranch, and a military base. But many people have forgotten that Angel Island was once the Ellis Island of the West. From 1910 to 1940, Angel Island was an immigration station. Hundreds of thousands of immigrants from around the Pacific Rim passed through here, most of them from Japan and China. It was a painful memory for them. Starting in the 1880s, America passed laws to keep out Chinese immigrants, the very people whose ancestors had helped build the West. The only Chinese that were allowed were relatives of American citizens already here. Anyone of Chinese descent was suspect. They were locked up and interrogated. They had to prove they were related to an American citizen. Husbands and wives were separated. Sometimes the stay was a month, sometimes a year. To tell the story, I've invited some people with personal experience. Felicia Lowe's father was interned here.
You were behind bars, and there were guards, and even a tower with guards with guns. You were treated as if you were a prisoner.
Lowe's father was interned in 1938 at the age of 18. After he was allowed to enter America, he made a good life for his family. And he never said much about the time he spent on the island.
So many Chinese immigrants were reluctant to talk about the Angel Island experience simply because they absorbed some of the shame attached to that in a cultural sense. You don't have to be Chinese to understand that being taken off a boat and being put behind bars would have some deep effect on you.
Another San Francisco resident, Dale Ching, was 16 when he made his way from Hong Kong to San Francisco. He expected to greet his father when he arrived, but instead, he was detained at Angel Island. Placed in a barracks with dozens of strangers, Ching waited for his interrogation. If he got the answers wrong, he'd be deported.
You have an idea of what they are going to ask you, but you don't know what kind of question they pop up. I worry about it day in and day out. If I don't pass it, then possibly I have to go back to China.
3.5 months later, Ching was released to begin his new life in America.
The inspector told my name. Said, drive home. That means San Francisco bound. Freedom. I was so happy. I was running around the place saying goodbye. But the people's crying because some of them have been years ago.
While they waited, just a few miles from freedom, internees carved poems into the walls of the barracks.
Really? He's a deep.
One lonely night, when the lights were out, guards outside the door, and missing your family, people at home are expecting you to land on that mountain and start singing when you come. And there you are, behind these locked doors. You don't know if you're going to be let off the island or not. Carving on writing and feelings on the rock was just one very small way of it.
During World War II, the exclusion laws were repealed. The immigration station still stands, and you can visit to see the poems carved on the walls. Today, there's a large and prosperous Chinese community in San Francisco, not only in the old Chinatown and North Beach, but throughout the coastal Richmond and Sunset districts. Angel Island State Park is now a peaceful refuge from the city. You can picnic, rent a mountain bike, go hiking, or ride a tour tram instead. There's a sunny new cafe, a lovely view of Ayala Cove, and the town of Tiburon beyond. And you can go camping.
Looking ahead, we see the imposing island of Alcatraz, famous in our times as a federal prison for maximum security inmates. In the early times, it was likely used as a place of isolation for tribal members of the body, and also as a camping spot, and an area for gathering bird eggs and seaweed. Later, it became a hiding place for natives attempting to escape from the California mission system. But the construction history of Alcatraz is not one that is often told. In the mid-1800s, the American military decided that it would make a good site for a military fortification. It was to be part of the innovative forts that included Angel Island and Air Buena. These inner forts were meant to provide support to Fort Point, which can be seen on Lake Archie from the acreage of South, and Fort Baker, the bay's outer limits to Colgate. The original estimate for building a military fort in Alcatraz in the mid-1800s was $300,000. The project proved to be overly conservative given the difficulty of construction, and given the steep labor costs that San Francisco workers charge in order to survive in the expensive city of San Francisco. As a comparison, in New York, stonemasons were paid